NYPD gearing up for its annual security challenge, the biggest party in town and perhaps the world. Times Square, relatively quiet right now, but in a few days, hundreds of thousands of people expected to jam-pack in there to ring in a new decade. And thousands of New York's finest will be there to keep the festivities safe. News 4's Andrew Siff is live in Times Square with more on the preparations. Andrew?
That's right, David. Even though there's no specific threat against Times Square or anywhere else in the city at this point, the police are planning to deploy what they call a counterterrorism overlay, which in Times Square means a major show of force. Barricades out, bomb-sniffing dogs already here, and heavily armed officers, check.
Times Square is probably going to be the safest place on the planet Earth on New Year's Eve.
The NYPD announcing its plans for December 31st, and if they sound familiar, the police believe there's no reason to tamper with success. You know the rules. No backpacks, no umbrellas, no folding chairs. A frozen zone closest to 42nd Street at 4 a.m., then a 20-block area after 11 a.m. Also, crowds can get a view of this.
I used to make it. I learned from my dad.
Tom Brennan was an artisan glass maker, and now he's the spokesman for Waterford Crystal, the company that makes that nearly 12,000-pound ball.
There's 2,688 of these panels of the Waterford Crystal triangles, and then we replace 192 each year with a brand new theme, and this year there also happens to be goodwill and hospitality.
The crowds could approach a record with a good forecast this year. The next decade on the horizon.
That's why people, stand outside on New Year's Eve when it's cold. That's why they travel around the world, because we need that pause and that moment of hope.
But while optimism is obvious for some, like the mom of this newborn,
it's going to be a great year.
The decision of whether to watch in Times Square or camp on your couch depends on whom you ask.
Super crowded, cold, but you will never forget. It's something to keep in your memory and your mind forever.
No, not if you're from New Jersey. You stay as far away from New York City as you possibly can.
The city's brand new police commissioner, Dermot Shea, at the NYPD's Joint Operations Center today with cameras trained on Times Square. He said he understands all points of view.
So many times I've gone there and felt the cold in my bones 3 days later, but there's nothing like being out there when that ball comes down.
Quite the memory from the police commissioner, feeling that cold for 3 days afterwards. The forecast pretty good this year, maybe not as cold as in some New Year's Eves past. They're expecting a huge crowd and, as you saw, a big police presence. We're live in Times Square. Andrew Siff, News 4 New York.